Welcome, one and all, to Let's Talk Games podcast, episode 8. We got the number right this time. My name is Uncle Jones. I am joined by two beautiful men, Jamie and Dan. Welcome to the show. Morning.
G'day.
Good morning. I'm Dan.
Hi, Dan. Right, so today I'm going to try and keep myself going. I've been awake for about 5 minutes and I have a coffee. Today we're going to discuss just some fluffy stuff from the top about what we've been playing. I have some thoughts on a game that I've just completed last night, and I know Dan's got one to talk about as well. Then we're going to go into some one night stand talk. There's a game called One Night Stand. Thanks for Jamie for introducing that one to our lives. Then we've got Assassin's Creed Valhalla thoughts. I have a lot. And then we've got Xbox partner event next week, which is just right up my alley. I'm very excited for. It's my life. And then some Last of Us and Ghost of Tsushima date changes and whatnot. And a little show, another suggestion from Jamie of Mythic Quest. So we've got a lot to talk about today. But from the top, let's start with some fluffy things about what we've been playing. Jamie, would you like to take it off?
I've played a lot. I've been back on the playing absolutely everything I can this week. So I may as well start with the update on Spider-Man. 72% finished now. I'm hitting a bit of a wall, which I don't want to do. Dan, I think you said 85% is story completion. Did you say that to me the other day? Somewhere around there. So I can't be too far. Judging by where I am in the narrative, I don't think I'm far away from finishing.
No.
There's some stuff that's winding me up now. I want to just play Spider-Man, and I keep getting these little missions thrown in that are not. And I'm not a stealth game player at all. I don't like it. So it's starting to jar me slightly. So in a way, I'm kind of rushing to the completion of it. I love the game and I love playing Spider-Man, but these little they just bring me out. They break the immersion for me. So hopefully I'll be through that by next week. I stupidly reacquired Monster Hunter World as it was in the massive PlayStation sale, and with Iceborne. I didn't play Iceborne on Xbox, so I was like, right, let's just grab it. Like, Monster Hunter was fun. I need a bit of a RPG looter itch scratching since Destiny's not doing it for me at the moment, so I've been playing a good bit of that. I finally managed to find a place with a Steam key for Fable 3. I've been wanting to play Fable after the whole like Fable stuff going on. That game can be really heavily modded on PC, so it looks ridiculous. So having fun with that. Started that back up. I have played a game which is a feature topic in One Night Stand, which we've all played, so I'll save that for then. But that was very, very good as well. Platinum trophy. Not that it was that difficult. And yeah, a bunch of games. Did we play Gears last week? I don't think we managed to, did we? Or was that right at the end of last week after we recorded?
It was after we recorded.
Yeah, so we technically got a bit of Gears of War in there as well. I have installed Gears Tactics. I haven't started it yet. And I've installed Streets of Rage as well.
Hell yeah.
To give a whirl, but I haven't managed to even boot that. I played a little bit more of Final Fantasy 15. It made me feel very sick. I don't know if that was just something to do with how the setup is on PC. So I have managed to get the settings dialed in now where it's not making me feel sick running around. So after Spider-Man's finished, that'll be next on the big game list. So yeah, all the video games all the time. Quarantine life.
All of them. Yeah, pretty much. Wow,
Indeed.
that's a lot, Jamie. That's a lot, probably.
And some Animal Crossing for good measure.
I'm in a good cycle. About that.
I'm in a good cycle with Animal Crossing, like, an hour a day, just go do my bits and that's it. Log off until the next day.
Yeah. I need that 5-star rating. I need it. I really do. So I can walk away.
You really don't have too much story left of Spider-Man, Jamie, at all. I think you got one more sneaky mission will be in there, and then you probably still have like a couple of hours left, but there's one sneaky mission left.
Yeah.
So what about you, Dan?
To finish it today.
What have you been playing?
So apart from Gears that we played last week, which we're having fun when Jamie trying to drive, I started Ratchet and Clank. So I've never played a Ratchet and Clank game. Turns out this Insomniac Games people, they know how to make pretty good games. Turns out. Yeah. So the gameplay is is really satisfying. It's simple but deep. So you earn parts which allow you to buy different weapons, and then you can upgrade those weapons. They have their own skill tree for each. Well, it's more of an upgrade system than a skill tree, but it doesn't force you to get all the guns if you don't want to. Like, you can choose which guns you want. Eventually what happens is you start mastering a couple of weapons, and because the game gets harder and harder, you're like, okay, now I've mastered these weapons, I'll just buy another one that I think sounds good. But in the end, I think you can get like 16 weapons by the end of it. And you end up using most of them. But it's just really well designed.
This
The
was made around the
story,
time the movie was out, right?
yeah, I wanted to play just like I was trying to think of something to play. I didn't feel like anything that was huge, and this game only took, I don't know, 10 hours, 10
alright.
hours to beat or something. So it was just perfect. I started it on Sunday night, and I had Monday off, and I pretty much played it from like 10 until 6 or something, and then I was done.
Decent.
Yeah. So it was what I was wanting. The story's pretty bare bones, but and I've never played the original, so I'm pretty sure it's just a remake of the original with some extra stuff added in. But it has this really good sense of humor to it. Like, it knows it's a kid's game, so it's not
So
trying to
cool.
hide the twists and the turns of the story at all, but it has humor about it which adults would appreciate.
Yeah.
You know, like there's a character in it, and it's like, I'm going to send you to this very, very, very not dangerous place at all on this very top secret mission that we can't tell anyone about, and you'll be fine, trust me. But you know, it's them setting you up to
Yeah.
get captured or died or whatever. So it's just really, I don't know, it's really genuine. So I really liked it.
That's good.
And so apart from that, yeah, it was just one night stand, which we'll talk about in a minute.
Yeah. Right. Well, yeah. Okay. So we're about to go into One Night Stand, but I'll quickly touch on just a couple things with what I've been playing. I won't take too long. I think I might just go straight into just Animal Crossing. Yeah, blah blah blah. Done. As I said, I need to just walk away from that game. I'm 1 star away from 5 star, and that's all I need, so I can just take it back at a casual thing. I need to play other games, and it's taking up all my time. So, Final Fantasy 15 Man, that came out November 29th, 2016, and I just finished it last night. So a lot of time has passed, but I think retrospectively, it's added to my enjoyment because it kind of, without spoiling things, it kind of reflected particular game changes or progresses a bit, and like, just fun passes basically. And I felt like I passed time with them in that regard because it's taken so long for me to finish this game. So I finished it about 22 hours on easy because I just wanted to just play the game, right? The story. And there's a new game plus mode as well, which I'm very keen to go through again now that I've done it. I was sitting there last night when the credits rolled. I had the controller down. I was just relaxing in my recliner, just like, wow, just listening to the music on this new title screen and just thinking about this journey. You know, it's one of those kind of moments where you're like, that was worth my time and I wish I'd finished it sooner. Like, it feels like a 2016 game. Like, it feels old, but even at the time it felt old because it took 10 years to get out. So it's always been one of these games where it's had a marred development. It had like multiple directors in it. It got remade when in another engine, like this Luminous engine that they built. They remade it in that engine when they had 25% of the game done, and then they swapped directors, and it got delayed so much because of Kingdom Hearts, because the director was on that series and he prioritized that. So there's all this crap. So it's not the game I think that they originally intended it to be, because it was originally called Final Fantasy Versus 13, and it was revealed on stage as such, and then it got swapped and changed across time. You can feel it like throughout the game. There's a particular chapter where the game just changes. Like there's all these open world elements and stuff and side quests, and then at one point it becomes very linear, and it's like a different game, and some story beats are kind of skipped, and you can feel it's kind of just rushing to the end. But
sounds like a typical Final Fantasy development cycle.
yeah, they seem to be having problems over there, that's for sure. But like, I did notice it, but it didn't really ruin the experience for me. Like, yeah, I would have loved to have played it for longer. I really love the characters. Like, I fell in love with this game once I was done. Even like throughout my last week of just kind of getting it done, I was like, wow, like these characters, the world, the story, the music, just the visuals, everything. I love this game. It's definitely not perfect. It's definitely not, like, it's very rough, but you can feel its age. And as I said, it felt like that at the time. But yeah, look, it was one of those games that I can't deny. Like, it did stir me at the end, and I felt like a sense of completion, and with the characters. And the last shot in the game, like the very last shot of the story cinematic or whatever, it just kind of hit home as to like a lot of stuff happened in that 4 year time period for me, and I felt like that within that last shot is what I was feeling at the time of finishing this game. And it was a very real moment. I can't explain it without spoiling everything, but yeah, games, man. Like, it's not just movies that do this to me now. Like, now that I've been getting into playing more games, I feel, I guess, more like emotionally charged or stirred or connected to these things. Like when I get right into them, I think it might just be because I'm getting older. I don't know, but or just the situation we're all in. But yeah, it definitely took me aside. I didn't expect it, and I think if a game like that, who has so many rough edges, and it's not what it originally intended to be, and it still managed to do that. I can only imagine what it could have been, like, if it was like planned out and completed to as it was originally meant to be. But Final Fantasy 15, I don't understand all the hate it got. It's yeah, it should have been put in the oven for another year or two, but for what they did, for what they managed to pull together, man, I love it. I do think it's my favorite Final Fantasy game now. It used to be 10. So, Jamie, like, I know you've had some problems with the game. I think it might be worth. You might not get as much out of it as I did, but I think it's worth maybe trying to get through to the end, um, particularly with all the Royal Edition stuff included, because it does add some extra story beats and extra kind of story cutscenes, and there are bits here and there that were left out of the original day one version of it. But I know I said I was going to be quick on it, but I can't laud this game enough. It's one of those diamonds in the rough, and it's the rough diamond, So yeah, I want to spoil so much to explain why I'm feeling this way, but yeah, I'll leave it at that. Anyway, yep, I'm done. That's my story. Cool.
So we all
So,
played
Jamie,
One Night Stand. That happened. Something I stumbled across by accident. You know, when you're looking at the sale pages on any of the stores, and this game popped up, and I was like, looks intriguing. It's £2.59, or was $5.99 or something for you guys.
Yeah.
I was like, do you know what? Like, I was putting the Monster Hunter transaction through anyway, and I was like, I'll just stick a couple of it's not even a cup of coffee. And it ended up being really, really, really good. So, zero complaints. I played through it twice. And then I was like, right, I get the point of this. Like, there are ways to achieve every different kind of outcome. And as the different outcomes started to unfold and you started to sense the mental disposition of the opposite character, I was like, right, maybe this goes a bit deeper than I thought it was going to. And after a few plays, I was like, do you know what? For something that costs less than a cup of coffee, like this is really, really well done. And that's the point when I said to you guys, like, play it. I think it'll make quite an interesting conversation.
Do you want to explain what One Night Stand is?
It's exactly what it sounds like. It is it's a video game based on a one night stand. You wake up completely void of any memory of the night before, in a complete strange place with a strange person, and try and piece together what happened. The outcomes that can happen as the end of the story, I believe it's 12. I think there's 12 different possible outcomes. And each of them are kind of, it's almost like that David Cage narrative web. You know, you weave your way through it to get to different endings. It's all kind of point and click. But yeah, I had such a good time with it, and I wasn't expecting to. It was a genuine good investment of money. And I thought, as I said, if you guys both sort of play through it, it's a good conversation to have, just to kind of see who went where. Now, I purposefully achieved every ending to platinum the game. You guys, I'm assuming, have only played a few different endings, so I thought it'd be funny to hear what endings you got, what kind of men you are. How would you address a one night stand if you woke up remembering nothing in a stranger's bed? Dan?
Yeah, I got 3 different endings. Oh, I'm not Dan. We'll go over to Dan then.
Yeah, it was really interesting when I started the game up because the whole premise of it is that you're blackout drunk, you can't remember, and I'm like, oh, I have to try and put myself into this mindset because I don't normally not remember a night after drinking. So I'm like, all right, but that's fine. So I tried to play it as closely to myself as I would, which, in all honesty, in that situation, it's basically me just fessing up. Like, I'm sorry, I just don't remember. I'm sorry, like that would be me. No, so and in typical me fashion, that my ending is pretty much the most polite separation. It was basically like thank you for last night. We both had a great time, and then I basically just leave, and she's like, see ya, bye, and then that's it. It was the most polite version of how that night I think could have gone, which I thought was very funny, which was probably true to form. I did then play through one more time, and I basically said, I'm just going to click whatever is furthest on the left and see what happens. And then, and I ended up taking a picture of her in the bed, and it ended up going viral. So
Hell yeah.
So yeah, don't do that one.
Yep.
Yeah, she winds up not too impressed.
Yeah, so I had 3 playthroughs, and much the same. Like my first one was relatively like more over an amicable separation. I'll say that. Where I was kind of just fumbling through, just like, well, you've only got so many options to choose between sections, I'll say, and I thought, like, I didn't know what I was in for, so I'm just like clicking it. Well, what's that? Oh, okay, what's that? You know, just looking around. Wasn't really thinking of the game mechanic of like, well, what do I need to click on to find out more details? I was just pretending like I'm just standing here, you know, in this room, just going, all right, what's this about? What's that about? You know, I thought in a real world situation that, yeah, I'll just charm my way through like I normally do. And not, you know, in real life, you're not beholden to, you've only got like 2 or 3 choices to make before you have to kind of continue on with the game. So I kind of wasted some of my selections the first time, but it still ended up in a way where I didn't get in trouble. So that was good. And then the second time I went through, I thought more of a game type mechanic. So I started looking at things that I otherwise morally wouldn't do, you know, and I felt naughty for doing it. And I ended up getting a walk of shame on that one. And I felt real bad. You know, I know it's just a game, but I like to put myself in those situations, and that's what the game's meant to do to you. And I was like, oh, I felt real bad, you know, and so I had to do it again. And my third one was, I thought, probably the more realistic one that I could see happening, and it actually was my longest playthrough on that one, and it didn't end bad, really. Like it was really kind of middle of the road, positive, potentially something else at the end. I was like, oh, that's pretty good. I mean, yeah, I kind of stopped at that one. I was like, yeah, I think it'd be more realistic one because I wasn't really dealing with this chick, and it was weird, and I don't want to push issue, and just left it at that. Um, she was she was nice to me, and then about me and the fact and that kind of stuff. So I thought that was a good result.
Cool.
What I
I'm
thought the
assuming you said
game
that she was nice to you at the end because you've frozen like a
Yeah.
robot man.
Ah, Am I
until
back?
Chunt
You
comes
are now.
back.
Yeah. So she was nice to me at the end, and when I finally got home, she was obviously thinking about me afterwards, and left me a message or whatever. So that was the nice kind of amicable way to end it without being in trouble, and there's a hope of something more. So I kind of left it at that. I am keen to do another playthrough to see what happens, but at that point I was happy to walk away because I was like morally satisfied.
What I liked about it is that on the second playthrough, even if you know a bunch of the information that you found around the room from the previous playthrough, you can't use it to your advantage.
Yeah.
So you
Yeah,
can't
can't
use
cheat
to
your
your
way out.
advantage. Oh, I've played this before. I can just say what I want to get the right ending. It only bases off what you find in the room and kind of holds you to it. So you can only use that bit of information, which I thought was good because it saves people basically just. It makes you really have to concentrate on what your next response is going to be.
yeah.
Yeah, and by sort of playthrough, it's 12 or 13 playthroughs to completely get kind of every ending, give or take. And by sort of the fourth or fifth, you're starting to kind of piece those things together. Look, if I do this now, she's going to notice this, or if I do this now, she's going to leave the room, and that's going to trigger. You start thinking more about it in terms of game mechanics. My first playthrough, I was being gentlemanly and nice, but I forgot that I'd taken the picture. So it kind of just cuts you off, and she's like, she's like, what the fuck? Get out!
Yeah.
I was like, oh, this was
Why
going
would you
so
take
well.
the-
after it was going so well. So the second playthrough that I did, I was like, no, do you know what? I'm gonna obviously not do that. Let's see how far and what we can get to. The second ending I got was where we left it as friends. It's like, oh, why wouldn't we be friends? And then again, like you said, shouldn't get the text saying like thanks. It's clearly that there's a basis of a friendship there. And then the third ending, I was like, right, I'm just gonna go complete dick. And yeah, much like you, ended up doing a walk of shame. And then I actually started investigating and trying to, because I was curious as to what was wrong with the female character. You start noticing things like there's empty bottles of alcohol around the room. There's what is alluded to kind of as antidepressants on the bedside table. There's photos of family members. She gets really, if you touch anything, she's like, get the fuck off my stuff, like really protective. And it's like, right, what's her situation? Did either of you make it out of the room to try and escape whilst she wasn't in the room? So when she leaves and goes off to do something, did you try to leave at that point?
No. I got fully clothed and then started looking around, and I wanted to hang around. I never.
Yeah.
Tried to
So
leave.
there's actually a play space outside of the room.
Oh.
For what you could only call getting trapped in the nether zone, as you try to break out and the door's locked. There's a few different ways that can go. I'd advise you play through to try and do that. And Chunt, I did tell you that there is kind of a cheap ending that you can do within 8 or 9 clicks right at the start if you just keep mashing go home. As soon as it comes up, it's like wake her up, take a photo, go home. Just keep mashing go home, and you will just like leg it out of their stalkers. It's obviously just a joke, but that is one of the endings as well. I find it funny that so Chunt, you had to do a walk of shame, right? Did you do a walk of shame clothed or not?
I was clothed, yeah.
if you leave unclothed, something funny happens too. So there's so many little interwoven things. I mean, if you look at the achievement list or the the trophy list, it is on Xbox, by the way, Xbox, PC, and PlayStation. If you look at the achievement list, there's about 20. I think there's 20 different kind of things you can do, and they're not all related to the endings. So the ones that are not related to the endings are for doing really dumb shit. Now, Chunt, just knowing you as being you, when she offered you the cup of coffee, I'm thinking you probably took it.
I did, yeah.
Did you take it white?
Yeah.
Yeah, so that pops an achievement because that's how she likes it.
Does,
So
yeah.
she's like, "Oh, that's how I take my coffee," and it pops an achievement. Like, I can't remember what it's called, but there's some similar ones to that kind of dotted throughout the narrative that you can kind of pull through. The one where there's one about, and again, I don't want to spoil too much because you guys can go back and try and obviously do these, but I'll just say, try and steal her underwear and see what happens.
Oh, I did pick it up, and you get the choice, and I was like, "Nah, it's all good."
Yeah, don't do
that.
nah. And just like explore everything in there. So like the things like the guitar have stories tied to them. Obviously the
And there's
photo
a
does.
Blu-ray or something.
Yeah, the Blu-ray, the novel, and on the bedside table there's a novel, and then underneath it there's another book. It's really thin, so you'll miss it. Like, I didn't see it until maybe 6th or 7th playthrough. So if you pick that up and take a look at that as well, that's quite interesting. As I said, I don't really want to do a whole spoilery thing on it because there are so many different ways this story ends. And, for the couple of bucks, get as much out of it as you can because I think it was really, really well done. And we can kind of check in and see anything else or any other progress you managed to make over the next week or so. But yeah, it's just one of the things you can sit down.
When you guys normally play this type of game, do you normally only do it on one playthrough, or do you normally do multiple playthroughs?
The only one I ever did multiple of was Wolf Among Us. That's the only one I've ever gone back and changed.
I would just play the game one way, and then that's my playthrough. Like, that's how the game is, and that's it.
Believe it.
And Chunt, you're frozen again.
Oh.
Yeah, we don't know what you're saying. You're just robotronic noises.
Yeah.
So do you think it was good value for money though, Dan, in terms of the experience that you get for the price of admission?
Yeah, when it is $5, and that's for most places down in Australia, that is the price of coffee for someone. It's a nice little game. If you have someone that is a partner that does play games but not a lot, it's probably a fun experiment. A fun experiment for them to have a play through as well to see what they would do. I'd be really curious to know what Monique would do in this scenario. It was just it did a really good job of someone that couldn't really relate to the situation to put me in the situation, and the fact of not remembering anything and just picking up clues.
It's one of those types of.
It's probably worth
to
buy at $5, but I wouldn't. I don't know. I probably didn't like it as much as you did, but I think it's a good game.
Maybe my personal life choices allowed me to relate to it a little bit more.
I don't want to say anything, Jamie, in case I get yelled at.
But it's it really they managed to do character development really well. That's what I was impressed with. To say there's only one kind of artificial character. So there's her. You're not really a character. You're the choose your own adventure book, right? You're picking your way through this path. She's the only character. And I found that it did invoke that feeling of, you're leaving that scenario. And most of my earlier playthroughs, when I wasn't trying to, navigate the system, did kind of tell me, like, I want to learn more about this person. So that makes me think, if I was in that scenario and this person was behaving this way, my brain would go like, either like, do you need help? Are you okay? Or like, seriously, what's wrong with you? That type of thing, that kind of vibe. But yeah, for the price of less than a cup of coffee, I thought it's definitely one of the best experiences I've had this week.
Well, yeah, well, that's what I was impressed with, even with the art style, how you picked up little nuances about how the way she moved, or like when she was like grabbing her fingers or stuff like that. Even though the art style is kind of
But
it's
hand
not stop
drawn.
motion, but it's like an animated art style, how it just all just floats.
So I found a game that happened the other morning, like the rest of the world did as well. Assassin's Creed Valhalla. It's just the only Assassin's Creed game that I've been looking for the past 10 years or whatever. I am super hyped for it. Valhalla, or just the Viking theme in general, speaks to me because it's part of my ancestry and stuff. So I'm like really excited for it. And I know Vikings wouldn't talk like that, so I'm kind of contradicting myself here. But man, besides Egypt and Japan, this is the only other one that's on my trio of wants from this series. So the cinematic trailer, yeah, it's only cinematic. I know both of you guys have seen it, and the rest of the world has as well. I love it. I think I love everything I see in it. It looks stunning, and there's like Xbox logos all over that trailer that I saw, and it mentioned Series X at the end. And then they release screenshots, and I'm like, this is stunning as hell. I can't wait to play it. And I want your thoughts on it. The first thing I'm going to try and just touch on immediately before we go further and pass it to you guys is the guy on the hood with the raven. Do you think that this game will kind of do more of the fantastical elements of the lore? Like, do you actually think that was Odin, or do you think that is an assassin and the raven is just a because the ravens symbolize like Odin and he's like all-seeing eye and stuff like that. So some people are like, oh my god, is Odin going to be walking around helping you in this game, or is it just that whole assassin motive of the guy on the hood and there's an eagle? You always have some kind of bird around you to eagle vision and all that kind of stuff. Yeah, that's just one of the conversations I saw going around. And but otherwise, look, hype levels, how are yours?
Well, mine is as good as the trailer was. It always when there's a reveal trailer for a game and it ends up being a fully CGI trailer, it always kind of disappoints me. It was helped by the fact that later on it was mentioned that there's going to be gameplay later this week, or is it next week with the Assassin's Creed stuff. So that kind of put me in a little bit better mode. But it was the same like with where Arkham Origins was coming out, and they had that awesome trailer of Batman fighting, Deathstroke and that. Like, it's a great trailer, but then I also think to myself, like, I know really nothing more about this game than I already did.
Yeah.
So the trailer was good. It's the stuff that came out afterwards that probably interests me more. It sounds like they're really getting heavily into RPG stuff now. Like, this is not an action game like it used to be. It's just an RPG, which you could argue was the fact with Origins and Odyssey. But this sounds like it's just going way, way more deep into that.
Yeah, it does.
And I still have to wait until I see some more gameplay from it. But I think this is probably going to be a scenario like it was when I was going from PS3 to PS4, where Black Flag was the game. Was one of the first games I had on PS4, just because there was not much else out at that time.
It was in the launch window too. Like, I remember.
And this is the same group that did Black Flag, that did Origins, and is now doing Valhalla.
Yeah. So if you look at this trailer, you'd probably expect this to be on one of those, like an Xbox E3 stage, like one of those announcement trailers, and that reveal trailers or whatever. And they rarely would have any kind of gameplay in it. Like most of those Assassin's Creed reveals never do. So that I think it just came out. Obviously, there's different times and shit. So I think for a blowout announcement reveal, I think really, really good. I expected to see some gameplay later, so I'm not entirely surprised by that. But Jamie, I know you mentioned your level of excitement for this movie. I'd take it as a movie, but
it may as well be. Yeah. No,
yeah.
It definitely did its job. very, very interested. I mean, Black Flag is my favorite Assassin's Creed to date. Similar to you,
Yeah,
John,
nice.
Origins came at the wrong time. I have it. I've not even really touched it. I've started it up, played the first mission, and then never went back. So yeah, this one it got me a little bit. Like, I like the whole Viking aesthetic. The CG trailer is phenomenal. I mean, I don't know how close we're going to get to those types of graphics even on next gen, but if it can look something representative of it, to the point where it's not all like, oh well, that was just shoddy, kind of false marketing, sign me up.
Yeah.
A lot of what they're doing with it, the RPG mechanics, right up my street anyway. The more RPG it gets, the more invested I'm going to be. I love a good RPG. I like the whole staying true to history side of Assassin's Creed. They always do try to recreate things from historical accuracy, which is, it gets embellished a bit, but the in and out is usually historically somewhat accurate. So if you look at that kind of time, the whole invasion of Britain and the Saxons, and it just depends whereabouts on that timeline this story falls. If it falls where I think it's going to, it's probably going to be quite an epic story as well. And the fact that you kind of get to rewrite history with your character is great. The anecdote that I've taken away from the reveal of the game is the whole, you can create mercenaries to go out with your friends' characters. So say like the three of us are all playing the game, we can build mercenaries that we then loan to each other, and they can bring us back, wares that they find on their travels, or give us XP boosts because they've been out and helped friends on missions and stuff like that. That's kind of some next gen tech, I think. Things we could start to see, like, oh, just because you can't be online playing with your friends, send them a dummy. They'll feel like they're there with you, which, in our situation, Chunt, you and I play quite a few games together, but we struggle to find time now that I'm on the other side of the world that fits for both of us. So it's like I'll have a mercenary Chunt just mowing around with me. Do you know what I mean? So it's that kind of vibe. It'll work quite well. So that stuck out to me. The combat, they're doing the whole dual wielding thing. Brilliant. Give me it now. Like, if the combat's anything like what I already experienced in Origins, yes, sign me up, because that was phenomenal. And apparently Odyssey's even better. And again, I haven't played Odyssey, so I can't really speak to it, but super hyped. And it will be, as Dan said, that Black Flag thing. I did the same thing. Like, I wasn't thinking about it, and then because it was one of the games that came out cross-platform, it was like, I've got this brand new Xbox, I've got like FIFA, Call of Duty, and Rise, and I think that was like, yeah, give me an Assassin's Creed. That's like, what, 80 hours of gameplay right there, and I remember being blown away by it, like looking at it going, so yep, this is next gen. So hopefully they do manage to kind of capture that lightning again, and you can see the distinct difference between the Xbox One version and the Xbox Series X version.
Yeah,
and to answer your question directly, Chunt, like with the Raven and everything, I think Odyssey dealt a little bit with the supernatural, or like with the Greek pantheon stuff. I think like Medusa and that is in there, so they might do something like that. But I think it's more of a symbology thing, where that in this part of the world, when the assassins, they have the ravens rather than the eagles, because the eagles, even though they've been used in pretty much every game, but I think maybe they're just using it as like, this is this part of the world, and they would have the raven that would follow them.
Yeah. Origins had supernatural elements, but it was more, like you just said, like it wasn't really in a real world. Like, you're not actually fighting like a giant, in the real world. It was more like in your mind, like visions and stuff like that. And so I would assume that kind of angle would probably take in this one, because if it's trying to be historically accurate, within its own confines, I wouldn't assume seeing like a giant godlike being trouncing around the battlefield, that would probably take you right out of it. But yeah, look, I think this is going to be awesome. This is one of the ones that people have been asking for quite a while, and heavily rumored. It's one of those badly kept secrets in the industry. Like, people knew about this a couple of years ago, when rumors started going around, and when there's smoke, there's fire, and here we are burning. So I cannot wait. Like they say, holiday 2020s. Um, whatever, like bring it on. I don't know if it's going to be straight out the gate, like in the launch range of titles for Series X, like day and date, or is it going to be Christmas or November? I don't know, man. I'm super excited for it. They only need to do like feudal Japan or something next, or ancient Japan or whatever. I don't know. And I can just walk away from this franchise. But the stuff that Jamie was talking about, the mercenaries, it sounds like an evolution of the Brotherhood mechanic from Assassin's
Yeah, that's
Creed
what
2
I was
Brotherhood,
thinking.
where like you've got your little tribe or your little group of gang people that you send out to do missions and stuff, and they come back with XP and bits and pieces. So it sounds like the natural evolution of that mechanic, which is cool. And you can create like tattoos and stuff for your dudes. Like Vikings are all about tattoos and tribal tattoos and everything. So that's cool. Like I wonder how in depth that'll get. Like how can you design your own from
Yeah, how
scratch?
much
Or
customization there is, and
yeah. Like
building into that.
if I can make me in the game, that would be fantastic. Like I know you can create. They're doing the same thing they did with Odyssey, where like Vikings, like even their women were respected like combatants. It's not like they were just at home, tending to the men or whatever. Like some of their women were just as fierce as the men, on the battlefield. So this one, you do have the option of being a male or a female, just like Odyssey. Like you could take two sides. Whereas this one kind of makes good sense of that because I don't know if you've seen the Vikings series or anything like that, but they look at that side. Like a lot of the female characters in that are fighting, or they're aggressive, or on equal levels, which is cool. So I'm very very keen to see how that goes. As far as the lore, like I wonder, Viking lore and Norse mythology, it's not really as widely known as the ancient Egypts and the gods of Egypt and Greek and all that kind of stuff, Greece mythology and Roman. Even like not many people know much about the North stuff. So I'm very keen to see how far in depth they'll go with that because it is quite mysterious. Like I know Senua's Sacrifice kind of touched on a lot of that, and like Vikings, man, they didn't have like the horn helmets that are popularized in mainstream. Like it was none of that really. Like it's traditional stuff. It's quite unique. Like the long ships and everything, that's all true. Um, but if you look at the getup that they've displayed in the cinematic trailer, like I see a lot of people online going, "Oh, where are all the horn helmets and where's all this and that?" But it's all the stuff that's been portrayed in cartoons and comics and stuff like that. So it'll be interesting to see how true they stay to that. Um, as I mentioned, like the Wicca type aspect, or the more natural looking stuff in Senua's Sacrifice is really um, pretty on point. Like even that was a bit stylized, but that kind of aesthetic is kind of what I was expecting from this, and it looks like they're kind of doing it. But yeah, man, like bring it on. I need this game now. Like it would just be so good. I would play this over The Witcher 3, if it's going to be RPG elements. I do hope that uh I think we mentioned the other day in chat that Ubisoft's games to me are just a slog. They're a grind, and it's just pointless fetch quests, or follow this character, or escort missions, or just get this, get that. Like you can't go here until you do this. Like all these random side quests that just pad the game for time, and I don't want to do that. And like even Jamie just mentioned, he barely played Origins, and I played more than him, and I still didn't really stick with it.
Yeah. Odyssey is
Um,
just daunting for me. I still haven't got off the first island, and I'm like, I know how big this thing gets because my brother played it. I'm just like, it's just daunting.
Yeah, it is. It's too big. Like I don't mind. Like yeah, cool. Games can be as big as they want to be, but to a point where you just like really like some of these games have put me off just sheerly on the fact that I don't know if I can commit that much time of my life to play this, even if I want to. Like this, if it's padding or extra quests just to make time, and it doesn't really contribute to the overall, experience. Like I hate that. I can't stand it. And even like Assassin's Creed 2, Black Flag, Syndicate, they were all like excellent. They were my favorite ones, Syndicate being my favorite. And none of that felt that way. Like I didn't feel like that in those ones. But as soon as I started playing Origins, I'm like, and it's level capping me behind missions. Like I can't go to this story mission because I'm not X level, and I have to go do these ones to get enough experience to get to X level so I can do the story. I'm like, nah, I'm out. Like I don't want to be hindered to continue the progress of the game narrative because they want me to just do these random side quests to pad out the time. I do hope that's none of that in this one because this game, it's I hope it's gonna hit all the notes for me personally, and I don't want it to be doing that. I don't want it to ruin my experience. So I am a little apprehensive, even though I'm very excited for it. But just history does tell stories. I don't know. Maybe I'll ask someone who's actually finished Odyssey, because apparently that's a lot different to Origins as far as how the like the story progresses and the RPG elements, which they started doing with Origins a bit, but I hope they learnt a bit of lessons on that one.
Yeah, I think Origins they tried to go the the looter RPG route where it was like, oh, you could have rare, legendary, epic gear, and you were trying to find that, and you could buy crates and typical, it was of that time, and Odyssey did away with a lot of it. So hopefully it did away with enough of it, and they've learnt more going into this now. Did they say something about you could actually play this game and not follow the main line if you didn't want to? You can go and do the whole family side of it, and it gives you the option if you want to just kind of play around in the world. I think they were saying something about that. Like there's two sides to how these people are perceived, and you will get to kind of pick which way you want to live out your life as a Viking.
They did point that out. Like now that you mentioned that, they pointed that out in the trailer. Well, there's two sides to the story, like how they're perceived, because that's true. Like Vikings are always perceived as like, rape and pillage and destroy and all this kind of stuff. But they're very very involved, not in the bad way, but they keep themselves. Their history and lore is still mysterious. Like there's not a lot that's kept. Like I know in Norway and all that kind of stuff. In Sweden and Scandinavia area, they're still kind of digging up stuff and finding things, and a lot of it wasn't preserved over time because they were kind of mysterious. So I'm very interested to see how they tackle that, because in the trailer itself, it's like you've got the dark side of the trailer where they're fighting in battle, and then it switches to like a a sunny kind of spot with kids running around and they're teaching them how to fight and stuff. So that dual aspect, that's interesting that you mentioned that, Jamie. I'm pretty damn keen on that. see how they tackle that. But
it has to have a bit of an evolution, right? And if you look, as we went into this current generation, Black Flag, it gave us the ships you could sail, and it gave us a bunch of other things. It was like, oh, this felt like a next gen Assassin's Creed game. So you'd think if they've been holding it for a cross-gen release, as Ubisoft have openly said, our strategy is cross-generation for the next 2 years. So it'd be really interesting to see. But I'm sold.
All right.
I don't even I don't even need to see the gameplay, but that's kind of, I think that's the next thing on the topic list, isn't it? Like what do we think we're going to actually see at this third-party event? And obviously Assassin's Creed is one of the things. But yeah, Chunt, you probably got some thoughts on that. What do you want to see Xbox put out from third parties?
Oh, look, I've heard things already that are saying that due to, not to dig right into it straight away, but due to the silence of like what Sony's doing over there, a lot of the third party stuff that was expected to be there have been talks with Xbox to kind of promote on their event, because they've been vocal about doing something, and they need to get their game known and out there. Like they can't just sit around and wait. So I'm expecting a lot of potential stuff that could have been shown off on whatever Sony's going to decide to do coming over for this reveal. I think this one's going to probably be bigger than most people might expect. That's just my assumption, just from what I'm seeing online and the chatter and stuff, and just the circumstance and how vocal Xbox is being. As far as third-party surprises, like it could be anything, man. Like I don't know what to expect. To be honest, like I haven't really been too focused on what a lot of the third-party stuff is doing. I like to be surprised by that. Like I usually just try and focus on whatever Xbox is doing, but look, I'm open for it. I don't like to spoil things. I try and avoid other kind of reveals like this. Like this Assassin's Creed thing only came up because Boss Logic was doing an art stream, and people were like, "Wait, this he said this is the next Assassin's Creed game," and people were watching it as he put the reveal art together, and that was a surprise. So look, I think we'll probably see some big surprises coming into next week that we probably wouldn't expect. Maybe some Japan support. Phil's been over there quite a bit before lockdown. Towards the end of late last year, he's been talking to a lot of Japanese developers, and that's been a topic of contention of his. He wants to get more Japan support. Even talks of getting a Japan studio under the Microsoft Game Studios umbrella, because it's one of his things that kind of eggs him on, and he's mentioned in recent interviews. He's like, we need to fix that, and I want to do it, and I've always wanted that. So that would probably be my major thing that I want to see. I'm expecting to see some kind of prominent or a surprise studio from Japan revealing something, on the Xbox event. How about you, Dan? What do you think?
So considering they're talking it as a partner event, it basically tells us that I don't think they're going to show any first-party stuff next week. It'll just be other studios to work with. And if you go along the line of thinking that, well, yeah, with the Assassin's Creed trailer that happened the other day or yesterday, you'd assume that they're in bed with Microsoft in terms of marketing. Sorry, in terms of Ubisoft in terms of marketing.
Yeah.
So I think you'll see some Legion, Watch Dogs Legion stuff there, which is scheduled for release early next year. So you'll probably have something there, something to show more about that game, because they've been trying to fix that game up a lot. Probably, I would guess. I'm not sure if they'd talk about Skull and Bones yet. I don't know if that kind of
God, they got dead on that one, haven't they?
gets in the road of Assassin's Creed or not, or if they wait till later in the year to show off that. If it's an Xbox event with partners and it's Ubisoft, surely there could be a Splinter Cell, maybe a Splinter Cell announcement or something. Depends on how far they go. I think other partnerships that Xbox tend to have is, I think Rocksteady, they did a bunch within the past, and we know that Rocksteady wanted to announce something at E3, so maybe they have something there.
Well, Rocksteady, mainly like their Batman games have been pretty heavily promoted by PlayStation, and they had a lot of exclusive content from those games from PlayStation. Like I wouldn't see, unless they can always change tactics for a new game. That's fine, but I've just observing they usually have a relationship with PlayStation for promo. But if they got a new game out, yeah, you're probably right. It could just be going with Xbox, considering the circumstances at hand. People need to put their games out.
And then the last partnership I could probably think of is EA. The fact that we already, at the Game Awards, with the reveal of the Series X and the box, in that little trailer, you had Halo, you had Forza, and you had FIFA in there. So I'm assuming there would be a lot of EA showing off their stuff. At this point, I don't know about their NBA titles, but you've obviously got FIFA. You'll probably have Madden, NHL and that stuff maybe, but those are probably the main partnerships I think of when I think of Ubisoft, and I think of EA as definitely the ones that I know will be there. I'm trying to think of, because I doubt Microsoft, if they're going over to look at Japan studios, would they try another game with Platinum Games after Scalebound failed? Like, would they start
Yeah,
on something new, or would
look,
they?
What if
I
they've
don't
been
think there's
working
much.
on Scalebound?
Nah, doubt it. Nah, that's
Yeah,
dead.
but Phil was pretty adamantly talked about how they just needed to shut that game down.
Yeah, Scalebound's not coming back.
Yeah.
Like I do think there'd be more Japan stuff coming because you look at Yakuza, that series is now coming to Game Pass, and that's one thing. And they've got Kingdom Hearts, like all the Kingdom Hearts, like HD releases and 3, which have always been,
And the Final Fantasies.
yeah, and all the Final Fantasies, they're all coming like one by one to Game Pass over time. So it's happening, and I think they're kind of testing the waters now because
I can see a Square Enix partnership of some kind.
yeah, true. Like,
But then
it could be
Square's next
anything,
big
man.
thing is Avengers, and
Yeah.
that's marketed with PlayStation.
PlayStation, yeah.
Like Tomb Raider, could they announce the Tomb Raider for next year?
I think it needs to go away for a bit.
It's just
Yeah,
about to say the same thing. Yeah,
But remember, the last Tomb Raider was made by a different studio to the first two, so
yeah.
they might just be the Tomb Raider studio from now on. While the other studio went and made Marvel Avengers. So
Tomb Raider, the last one, that Shadows of the whatever's Shadow of the Tomb Raider, didn't really get the conversation going. I don't think it really set the world on fire like the other two did. I haven't played it yet either, but just from reviews and people I don't know have played it, they're just like, yeah, it's another one, and it didn't really progress anything. Like that whole trilogy was supposed to be, you're going to see her come to fruition to the Lara Croft Tomb Raider, come to her own. But the third one, it was just more of, what am I doing? Kind of, I'm making weird life choices and stuff, ruining things. So I don't know. I think, like Jamie said, I think it needs to kind of just go quiet for a bit until they can figure that out properly. But yeah, look, I think any of these options could be viable, to be honest. Like Ubisoft and EA have always had a strong relationship with Xbox, like forever. So I wouldn't be surprised to see something from them. Like that's just kind of be like, oh yeah, cool, like per the course.
Yeah.
But like if you're asking me for like a surprise or what do you expect, I think going into the Japan side, because that's just been a point for Phil for the last couple of years to get happening. So I really wouldn't be. I want to see some of that be surprising. Like, oh wow, cool, another big Japan studio. Like an announcement, like back in the day of Lost Odyssey, an RPG exclusive to Xbox, or Blue Dragon or something like that. Like that kind of caliber of an announcement, I want to see. Because those are great games and exclusives. Like even if I'm not looking for exclusive content from these announcements, but just something big that we'd expect to see on the PlayStation stage, so to speak. But I don't know, Jamie. Like, do you have anything else on that one? Like, did you have any particular thoughts?
I've thought quite heavily about what I plausibly think we might see. I think it could go one or two ways. I think it could be a very short 5-minute sizzle reel. Because it's part of an inside Xbox thing. But then there is also a chance that it could be of an X override and they go for a full hour and show things that partners are working on. I think the latter is more likely. I think it's going to be lengthy. Yeah. Like if I'm thinking about it like logically. And Japan, I'll go there first because I'd be amazed if Atlas were their publishing deal, whatever the exclusivity rights is with Sony, is done, and Atlas can start bringing Catherine, Persona, all of these things that are huge franchises for them over to everywhere. There's been a lot of rumor around Persona 5 going to the Switch. That game is made for a handheld. Would it also come to Xbox? If that deal's, do you know what I mean? If that partnership deal is up and it's like, oh, they want to start working with Nintendo, why wouldn't they want to start working with Microsoft? That's just a hope. That's pie in the sky. I'd love to see Atlas's stuff on Xbox. We'll see something from Cyberpunk. There's no way that they're putting a console out with them and then not showing something. So yeah, CD Projekt will be there, and I think they'll probably show Cyberpunk working on Series X hardware, or something emulating Series X hardware to go, look, this is what we will eventually push to the Series X. Just to,
do you think it'll be a trailer, or do you think it'll be gameplay?
Gameplay.
Well, or a gameplay trailer, sorry.
No, yeah, it'd be 100%. I think it might even be stage, if it not stage presence, but it will be the actual gameplay. And I think they probably get quite a lengthy spot as well. Ubisoft, as you said, Watch Dogs is coming. They have that Gods and Monsters thing as well, which I know they said that was probably the furthest pushback of everything. Watch Dogs and Assassin's Creed are not going to release too closely together, so I do think that that's still early 2021 for Watch Dogs. Beyond Good and Evil, do they show us something? Do they show us an update if you're thinking Ubisoft? EA, FIFA, guaranteed. It, like you said, it's literally in the sizzle reel from the Game Awards. And when we moved into this current generation, they were the Ignite engine that it was. They moved FIFA to a new engine, and look at how much better it looks on Xbox One. And they had the partnership deal for the Legends and everything, which eventually fizzled out, and the marketing deal is actually now with Sony. But I wouldn't be surprised to see that now going back and flopping back over and seeing what they can do. Madden, don't really care for Madden, but it's a big deal to the Americans, so we'll see what they show of that. But you're probably right, the two there. Battlefield, because I'm pretty sure PlayStation are going to keep the rights to Call of Duty in terms of a marketing thing, and then the year after this it'll come back to Xbox when they realise that a lot of the stuff that they're doing in terms of the low latency and input delay stuff is more beneficial to shooters. So we'll give them another year before Call of Duty come crying back with Activision going, please, can we bring our competitions to your platform? And then I think I'd struggle to think of anywhere else. We've touched on the main studios, the ones that we think probably could be doing something. Everyone else is first parties, and that's really what we're waiting for. I mean, let's be honest. We know there's a new Assassin's Creed coming. We know there's a new Watch Dogs coming. We know there's more FIFA. It's not stuff that we're anticipating or being surprised by. So yeah, like you, Chunt, I hope I come away with something like actually going, wow, I wasn't expecting that, but that looks sick. If we can say that.
Depends on how much new stuff we hear, which is not like with these third parties. Most of this stuff's going to be sequels, but are we going to hear anything from EA about anything Star Wars related, like at all? Like, is it like a Battlefront 3 going to be announced? Because how long's Battlefront 2 been out for at this point?
Well, they've ending support for that now. Like, they're not making anything new for this current Battlefield game. They've stopped. There's no more new content coming out for that, so they're working on whatever's next now.
Which is interesting timing, considering that there's a third-party event happening next week.
Yeah, how soon?
But I think it's too far away. I think that's next year. I think Battlefield is this year.
Yeah, I think EA might still be playing catch up on that shit. Like, when you look at how just royally they've messed up just having this license. Like, they've had one good game out of it, and that was begrudgingly letting Respawn do it. And
what about Titanfall?
So
what about a surprise Titanfall?
I'd love it to come back. Sure.
How many? So have they got? Respawn's got 3 studios. You've got Apex, you've got Titanfall, and you've got Jedi. Or is it 2 studios that? It's
2 studios, but Vince Zampella has been put in charge of another EA studio, which is likely going to take one of the Respawn properties over. It wouldn't surprise me that if whatever that studio is becomes the Apex studio, and it just keeps pumping shit out for Apex Legends and lets the 2 teams at Respawn work on narrative games with Star Wars, assuming they get a sequel. But yeah, all again hyperbole and speculation. But I think it's going to be. I think by next week when we're having this conversation, this event will have just happened.
We'll have lots to talk about.
We'll have a lot to talk about.
Speaking of sequels and what we're expecting, there's a little known sequel coming out that not many people know about, called Last of Us. Like, it's a hidden game. It's kind of going on under the radar a little bit. So Last of Us 2 is coming out, if you haven't been aware. And there's some issues going around that. Dan, have you heard of this game, Last of Us 2?
Vaguely. I think I vaguely remember playing it. Like, it's like 7 years old at this point. And
all right,
hasn't aged well at all.
Right. So, are you able to fill in any gaps as to what's happening with this new game? Like, are you aware?
With the game or the studio? That's probably two different questions.
What's in general? Fill my gaps, Dan. Fill me in.
So this past weekend, there was a leak from someone supposedly from the studio that put out a whole bunch of clips and spoilers for the story. In the comments of the video, it said that they were someone working on the game and that were frustrated with their pay dispute with the studio. As the week has gone on, it's sounding more and more likely that might not actually be the case.
Right.
But it's the stuff that was leaked is definitely from the game.
Yikes.
So in saying that, the Last of Us Part 2 got its new release date. It was put on indefinite hold, and then so now it's coming out on the 19th of July, which is 4 days before my birthday. So
bless.
I've taken off the Monday and the Tuesday as well, so I've got a 4-day weekend to play this game.
Hell yeah.
It's disappointing. You hear from Naughty Dog employees who are really, really pissed that this has happened, which kind of makes you think, like, either someone, if it was someone from the studio, is either just a despicable person to do this to all their colleagues, or it's someone that just got the info because everyone's working from home now. Like, it must just have opened up a security breach of some kind, and now they've screwed over this game a little bit.
They what's the developer? What they called?
What was that? Sorry,
what's the developer's name?
Naughty Dog.
Naughty Dog. Yeah, right. So they have been a bit naughty, haven't they? Like, the news hasn't been great recently. Like, they've had a lot of bad press going around. So I wouldn't be surprised if it's a disgruntled employee. But even so, they're a jerk and a dirtbag for doing that. Like, you shouldn't be doing that. That's like someone coming out and ruining a whole movie for an entire studio. Thousands of people working on something, and you've just destroyed it. Relatively speaking, in the mindset. But I hope it's not that. I hope it's just maybe at worst or at best a security breach of some hacked data or something. I'd like to think the human element isn't the reason behind this. Just to think better of people in this current climate we're in. I mean, the last thing you want someone to be like, I'm so bent out of shape because of whatever reason, XYZ, I'm going to ruin this experience for the millions of people that are looking forward to this game because I'm a self-centered prick. I hope that's not the case. I really do just hope it's someone that just hacked into their system, one of those real world scenarios of, I want to do this because I'm an idiot. I'm sure they'd look after their employees during this time. I would like to think. Maybe I'm a bit too optimistic. Look, I don't have much tied into this game franchise because I haven't even played the first one yet. I do own it now, so I am looking forward to play it. So I'm now in that basket of people that I don't want it spoiled, because if I like this first one, naturally I'm going to go want to play this next one. So I don't know, man. Call me an optimist, but Jamie, what do you think about this scenario? Like, you said you opened up YouTube the other day and you started seeing some thumbnails running around, and you immediately closed your window.
And you know what? This is the frustrating thing. When people put things in clickbait titles or thumbnails, and YouTube then recommends you said video. So I literally just opened the homepage, and the first thing that caught my eye was, if The Last of Us 2 plot leak is legit, it's absolute trash. And it's like, that then gives you a predisposition in your brain to go, oh, this is going to be trash. Like, as much as you might go, that could be complete bullshit. It's an artistic piece of work. Artistic, not autistic. It's an artistic piece of work, and it's open to interpretation. That's what your logical brain says, but you can never shake the fact that you've seen that. And at the same time, I also saw that apparently whoever this person who's leaked this has said they're not allowed to use the word fun at Naughty Dog. Like, the word fun is banned, which I thought was quite interesting. And what a weird thing to ban, like the word fun. You make things for people to have fun.
Have fun. Yeah.
So yeah, there's a lot of weirdness going on around it. I think the game just needs to come out. It needs to air for a bit and be celebrated for what is probably going to be a masterpiece. Chunt, like you, I haven't played the first one. I own the first one. Maybe that's something we should try and play through at the same time, and debrief with each other as we go through it. But
the other thing with, if you read the plot synopsis of The Last of Us, I'm not going to spoil anything, but if you read it, you would say that, well, I've kind of seen all this before, which you sort of have in a way, but it's the way that the story is told in that game which makes it special. So you can't, it's not something you just put in a synopsis and you're like, this is why the game's different, because it uses tropes from that genre of storytelling. So even if I read what The Last of Us Part 2 was, which I haven't, I don't think it would also tell me the full story, if that makes sense.
That's right. You'd miss all the context of the game and how it's played out and how it's handled and that kind of stuff. I get that. Like, people use that argument all the time, and people are spoiling movies. It's like, oh, so I'm not really spoiling anything. I've just told the whole story, and then someone else will go, yeah, you're not really missing the context. Oh, like, you're missing the context of the scene anyway, so it's not like you've spoiled it, which is bullcrap. Like, I hate people that spoil shit. I hate it. Like, I try not to be one of those people. Like, for as long as I've known myself, like, I don't want to be that guy. And people that do it online, like someone, I will, just to relate back to Final Fantasy 15, just for a brief moment with spoilers. Like I mentioned to you guys, someone on Twitter spoiled the ending for me. They ended up, yes, it was kind of true, but I didn't have any of the context behind that part. But I would have preferred not knowing that at all going in. So I can only imagine what fans of this Last of Us game would be going through. Like, yeah, if they wanted to avoid it, then they should do it by all means. But like Jamie also mentioned, if you open up YouTube and it's suggested to you, then you're already predisposed, and that sucks, man. Like, particularly in the situation we're all in, where you need just something to look forward to, or something. Even in general, you've been waiting for this, anything special, and then someone goes ahead and takes it from you. That means something, particularly now, to people. So it's not a good story at all. So I hope the outcome is a better one, and hopefully, maybe in a real world, that this is just all a prank. Someone's just pulling a prank on everybody, and none of it's true. Who knows? I don't know, man. But look, another thing to be positive on. I don't know if anything has come out for this game. I've been off the radar besides trailers, but Ghost of Tsushima, I'm on it. Like, I can now buy that game because I now own a PS4. And I totally forgot it was coming out on PS4 until I was going through the PSN store. I'm like, oh wow, I thought that was a PS5 game. So that's coming out soon too, right, Dan? Like, is it
July 17th?
Nice, cool.
So about a month difference between two, which people are getting really upset about for some reason.
Why? What?
Well, because they're like, is that enough time? But I think people are just, they're used to. It's not like if The Division came out a month before, say, Ghost Recon or something, right? Like, they're made to be played forever, whereas Last of Us and Ghost of Tsushima are just these single player games which will last you, who knows, 20 to 35 hours or something, which a month difference is not much at all.
Yeah. Yeah, okay. I understand, like, oh, but I want the game to succeed, so it should have more time apart to get sales. But my argument would be like, get over it. You're going to get it sooner than you expected or wanted to. Buy that instead of the other one. I don't know. People just need to learn how to make the right choice for themselves.
Just be happy.
Be happy. Like, yeah, exactly. This could have been pushed to next year, or later on November or something. But no, you're getting it July, like a month after another massive title. Woe is you. God damn it. Far out. I don't know. Like, is there anything I need to know about going into this game? Like, is it tied to anything? Like, I honestly don't know anything about it. Like, is there?
No, it's a total new creation from them. based on a battle that did happen, but they've Assassin's Creed like, right? Like they've created this character to go through this scenario. There's little bits and pieces coming out about the gameplay, but they still don't want to talk about it too much yet. They're talking about how there's no map, and it's more looking through the world. So you'll know where to go by the physical markers in the world, like go by the big white tree or whatever. And so as you ride over the hill, you'll see the white tree, and you go there, and you kind of talking about identifying
Ocarina of Time shit that.
naturally.
Yeah, it sounds like it. Oh, that's cool. Like this will be a different take on it. Like I thought maybe it was just going to be one of those Ubisoft type games. It looks like one of those, feudal Japan kind of open world things. I was like, yeah, cool, right on. But if it's a different take, a different gameplay, sounds interesting to me. And,
I'd much rather it be linear. I think, from what I've seen of it,
yes,
like I'd quite like a linear experience in that setting over another RPG.
Yeah, well, it's not a if you've played Infamous Second Son, I think it'd probably give you a more understanding of the scope. Like it's open world, but we're probably not going to be like Witcher open world, like
waypoints.
Think of it as a contained open world, if that even makes sense.
Right.
They won't. Yeah, it's not about probably think of Horizon, Jamie. Like the world is big, but you're not getting. It's not daunting like we've talked about with when you look at Odyssey or you look at any of these other ones that are third party.
Right. Well, yeah, I'm all for linear experiences, and this is going to be the worst segue in history. But you know what else is a linear experience? A TV show. That's an episodes. That goes in one line of a story. And we watched a TV show last night and this week called Mythic Quest. Oh, I did it. I got into it. Jamie, you introduced us to this show.
Yes.
Would you care to take on this topic, please?
Yes, as I suggested it. This show was a laughing stock at E3. Remember when it came on Ubisoft's stage and it was like, oh, what the fuck are Ubisoft making a TV show for? Well, it turns out that Apple bought the distribution rights to that TV show, and they also pumped the money into it. And Ubisoft basically just served as a consultant so that the writers of the show and the showrunners could...
Lionsgate did. Lionsgate developed the show.
Lionsgate, yeah, they developed it. But in terms of Ubisoft actually having an involvement, it became apparent that it's nothing other than kind of a consultancy. Like they were big fans and wanted to make a show about games, but they didn't want to give them any creative control, if that makes sense. So they've gone up to Ubisoft and checked out what a development studio looks like and seen how things work and met weird characters. It is quite evident that Rob McElhenney met and had an experience with old mate that did For Honor. You know, the dude with the beard and the cane?
Yeah, yeah.
He did an interview where he talked about him, and he was like, we have to make a TV show about these people. Like, this guy's crazy. And there is actually an interview on IGN with him saying those exact words. So that was kind of the sell point for them to make it. Now, as I said, laughingstock from E3, like, what the fuck is this show about? I watched the trailer for it when Apple TV had launched it. I was like, you know what? I just give it a try. Like, it's about video games. It's probably going to be really shit. By this point, I also hadn't watched It's Always Sunny. So I went in not knowing what to expect from these writers and majority of the cast members. And then after one episode, I was like, they're nailing this. This is really good. And after 2 episodes, I was like, yeah, all right, sold. Like, I want to know more about, like, the character dynamic. It's got that, it feels like The Office. Yeah. You know what I mean? It's got that kind of workplace environment feeling, but with a video game undertone. And I think I've watched the season 2.5 times now. Like that first season, just as I just stick it on, because it is so funny and it nails gamers and video games perfectly in a comedic yet respectable way. Do you know what I mean? It's not like they're going, oh, they're all sat in the parents' basement, and but it's not. It is that whole, the stereotypes that they know their players so well, and they themselves are really fucking unlikable. It just all ties together perfectly into this kind of mesh of, yeah, this is probably what a video game studio is like. And aside, obviously, Ubisoft's input, Ashley Birch is in it. You know, very well respected voiceover actress in the video game industry, and she, you know, there's stories that she's clearly told them that have had some influence. Again, if you watch a few of the interviews, you know, she's really clued them in on some stuff that goes on in the industry, and just the whole thing. I just want more of it. Just give me more of it. I was like, you guys need to experience this because it's video games media, so TV, set, film, whatever you want it, done properly and done right. And it's come out of nowhere from something that looked like it was going to be absolute garbage. I had a hoot of a time.
Right. Is that the only series? The only season? Like, it's the only one?
No, it's been renewed. It was renewed before it even came out. As soon as Apple saw the finished product, they were like, we'll order season 2, thank you.
Awesome. Cool. See, when I got to the last episode, I'm like, like I actually quite, you know, built some kind of connection to some of these characters in the story, and I was like, I'd like to see where that goes. So
It's over. Really, it's over too soon, right?
Yeah, very much so. Like it just starts to pick up, but I guess for a first season, it kind of concludes at the most logical point.
And just so we can actually go into depth, Chunt, we should call spoilers from this point onwards. Yeah. Like if you haven't watched the show, then don't.
Yeah.
Also, so for my take before we go into spoilers,
yeah,
I didn't particularly like the show that much.
Okay.
It was fine. It's a thing that you can watch if you want to. You'll get some enjoyment out of it.
Ouch.
We'll go into spoilers about it because it's just going to be easier to rather than tiptoeing around.
How dare you have a differing opinion, Dan? How dare you?
Yeah, I probably won't watch season 2, and I think there are things about it which I would want to see more explored, but there is a lot of stuff in it where I think it's just kind of a waste of time, and
ouch,
I'm really on the fence about it. If you're someone that was previously interested in the show, you would probably enjoy it. This might also be from the fact that this tends to happen when I watch a show that I'm not in the mood for. Like if someone's like, watch this show, and then I force myself to watch the show, it normally puts me in a bad spot to begin with.
Yeah, it's like having sex with somebody you don't want to have sex with, you know?
Yeah, a little bit. So like this week,
about that
small side tangent, I watched all of Castlevania on Netflix, and I just and I was just because I've always been like I should watch that show, and then I just naturally organically came to watch it, and then I could watch it for what it was, and because we were like, let's watch this show before the podcast. I don't know. I think it just put me in this space of like, I'm watching the show, and this wasn't my plan. Blah blah blah.
Yeah.
Anyway, I think people that were interested in the show would probably enjoy it if that's where their mindset was. I don't know who I would recommend this show to. That's probably one of my big issues. But we'll spoilers if you want.
I think like every show should be not just targeted to a particular audience. Like I think most shows, if they're created correct with the mindset during development, would be to create a show that anyone can watch regardless of subject matter. So I think like the comment of this is meant for gamers or whatever, this show is meant for gamers, like it could be true, but I think it's still open to those that aren't familiar with the environment or the social aspect or anything to do with that kind of culture. Like I looking at it from just me watching it, like there's a lot of context and subcontext and commentary on like not only the culture but the industry itself. Like you look at the kid, Pooty, he's just a straight up commentary on how these developers look at who's playing their games and who they're targeting, and he's just this asshole that somehow has the company by the balls because of his opinion, because he's a massive fan base, which is so prevalent today. Like it it's a legit comment to make, within the industry. Like, you got these little kids that are 14-year-old that can have a developer's balls in a vice just based on their own opinion. And I laughed at that aspect. I hated that guy. I hated that kid. But just that little part of the story, I was like, wow, that's actually true. And I could see developers doing that, watching some random kids with massive followings to go, oh, do they like it? And adjusting their product accordingly. And sucks to see that. Like, I'd prefer they just make the product they want, but yeah, they have to make money, and they kind of go into that on the show. So that was pretty interesting. Like, yeah, the characters are cool, and the main dude, I thought he was pretty funny. I enjoyed him whenever he was on screen. I thought he
Yeah,
was.
I enjoyed him too. My thing is like with the Pewdie kid, like you understand they're obviously ripping on PewDiePie, right? But like calling the kid, like even the name Pootie, when like it's not a funny joke. Like the joke is the fact that this guy is like something that if you pay attention to the scene, you know who this is. But like basically trying to rework his name to sound exactly the same, like it's not a joke. It's just basically trying to say something that already is.
Yeah, I don't think it's a direct comparison to PewDiePie. Like, I get
I
it.
didn't
Like, yeah,
pick that up
Pewdie.
either.
No, like, I think the character of Pootie is like representative of, like, say, these kids that play Fortnite, and they've got $1 million houses, or they play CS:GO or COD or whatever. Those kind of kids that are on Twitter Twitch all the time, playing the next hot game. That's that kind of aspect of, I think, what they were targeting. Like, maybe the word Pootie was maybe to try to sound a little bit like PewDiePie, because he set that, like, he shipped that off, like he set that up, and everybody copied him, like, with that kind of, you know watching him play video games, like, he popularized that. So logically, maybe coming out with a name that's similar, yeah. But I think the character was more of a take on all these kids that are making millions of dollars, and there's companies that watch them to make sure their games are going to be played by these kids, and it's a true commentary. And I was like, wow, that sucks. That they got all these skilled people and adults that are watching these kids just to make sure their games are played. But that was a good through line. I didn't expect him to be the guy's son. Later on in the show. If you want to avoid spoilers, you probably should have by now. But I did enjoy that scene. Like, I'll pass about the Jamie in a minute, but that kid, I hated him up until that point. And that scene when he was going off with his dad, I thought, wow, he's actually really good. Like, the actor himself, I thought he did that really well. Like, he seems older than he is in that part. Like, even for a kid, it's hard to talk or be that kind of out there. But like, kid actors, you see them in some roles and they're just not putting themselves in it, and they don't understand or whatever. But I think that part where he's just like cutting the guy off and yelling at his dad and, like, telling him off in a way that's kind of like, you weren't there and all that kind of stuff. I really enjoyed that scene. Like, I'm not going to write too much into it or read too much into it as like Oscar worthy scene or anything, but child actors are always hit and miss. But I still hate the character. But that point, I was like, all right, I'll give him a pass at that moment, just based on that history there. But yeah, Jamie, I'll pass it back to you, because I could talk about this for a while.
Well, Jamie.
Oh, he's not there. I wasn't even looking at the screen.
So yeah, I think everyone in their roles did a good job. I guess, like, I think you can tell that a lot of it, the comedy was improvised.
Yeah.
And that being said, I think there's a lot of times where you could tell that there was an improvised joke made, and the actor opposite them, like, maybe it's not their natural gift to be as improvisation or whatever the word is.
Yeah,
They can't improvise as well, and so you see it takes them like a little bit longer to get
Pick
it
up
and
on it.
respond back.
Yeah.
And it just took me out of it a few times. But I think everyone did well in the role that they were playing. It's really weird going from watching Community, which I've been watching the last couple of weeks, and seeing Danny Pudi being Abed in that show, to them watching him in this show, because he's so
right.
totally different. Because this one, he's the money hungry,
The money dude. Oh, I hated that guy.
like, so he's just playing a dick.
But again, that's
Whereas in the
such a
other show, he's
good. His
lovable
role
and-
is such a
and-
commentary on the industry.
Yeah,
You know, the
very
way
much.
they have
The
to have that person in a studio who thinks about nickeling and diming everybody. It's that kind of thing that I really resonated with. Like,
Yeah.
it surprises me that you didn't enjoy it then. Just on the basis of how the industry commentary is so on point with every character. You know, you've got the misogynistic writer who always wants to write from the male perspective and wants nothing to do with the female. The community manager who's constantly being bombarded with shit to deal with and protect the developers from. You know, the creative director who's like, you know, we have to delay, my vision's not perfect. The really difficult dude to work with. Even the testers that are just like, you know what, I fucking love this game. I'll sit here and do this for free. Like, we've all said that at some point. That's what the characters and the performances, like, it's, it really did blow me away. Sorry, but to your reference to Moneybags.
Yeah, it was. I think it's more. Well, one, I think the show also deals with probably two of the things I don't like the most about the industry, in terms of just the content. In terms of, they're making an online MMO, and it constantly talks about streamers. Like, the two things that I just don't involve myself with at all, even being a gamer. So it's talking about two things that I don't particularly like, which is why I'm probably asking that question of, like, who's this show for? Because it probably does appeal to more people than myself. Like, I'm probably the outlier in that situation, because there are people do love watching streamers. People do love those online community games, and I just happen to fall in the other spot.
Yeah,
I think all the actors do a good job. A lot of them grew more and more on me. I was surprised that there was an Australian in the show. I thought I was like, it was so weird hearing the Aussie accent in the middle of everything, and I didn't realize she would actually become kind of the.
She was awesome.
Main plot, like,
she's a pseudo lead, right?
Yeah.
And I was just so I actually found that quite interesting. But even her character, sometimes, like, she just goes too far with some of the jokes. This is the moment she's meant to. It's like she's been told, this is the moment you are meant to be silly, so she's just gone overly silly. I don't know. Something just didn't hit right with me.
I can see that. I think it might also be because of the Australian accent. She stands out more. Like, I agree with you. Like, whenever I see an Aussie in amongst Americans, I'm like, well, that's weird. Because you're just not used to it, and you're hearing yourself, kind of. So I can understand that. And some of the banter back and forth, like, maybe it was improvised, but like, as far as like watching something that you don't like I don't watch Schindler's List because I enjoyed the Holocaust. Like, I want to, like, know about what it is and be shown something I'm not used to. And this was kind of, I'm not comparing this show to Schindler's List, but it was like watching aspects of this industry that you're like, oh yeah, in a light that you might not have been aware of, like, on top of your mind. And like, this isn't some deep theory show that's gonna change anyone's life, but I think as a fun show that shines a light on the industry and all the aspects that you have to kind of admit are there, as proud of it or not. Like, even like, I think episode 5 was the a real standout episode of the series.
Right. That is the perfect example. Sorry to cut you off, Chuck. Where that is my favorite episode by far, is the best. It also was the
Yeah.
one episode that didn't have any of the other characters in it.
Yeah, it is tied in though. Like they there's if you watch later on in the series or just even before, like the building that they're in is
Yeah.
the building that they started their company and then folded. So this Mythic Quest are the next owners of that building because you see in the column
And
where
the
people
developers,
mark their names there.
sorry, the studio that owns the developers, the business that owns the developer,
Montreal,
the Montreal lot is the same company.
same thing, yeah. So it
Yeah,
is
that
in universe.
it's a very strong episode, and for the first, well, that's the longest episode as well. I think it clocks about 45 minutes, and it's the best episode of the whole series.
Yeah.
It also, like you said, has very little to do with the rest of the show, but for that 40 odd minutes where you sat there going, I feel like I'm watching a different TV program, for that last 5 minutes for it all to start to make sense as to what they're doing with it, and then right at the start of the next episode, you know, there's references back to that episode. I think it was so cleverly done, and the performances throughout. I'm not going to take anything away from the main cast because they're phenomenal. There's not a single one of them that I don't like or think is misplaced. You know, all the way down to, as I said, the chick running the community servers. You know, dealing with Kotaku.
I'd like to see
talking
Daylight
to him about Nazis.
Yeah, no, she was good. The one character I really hate, I've known people like this, and I try and avoid them where possible. Is the dude game tester that comes in?
Oh yeah, he's supposed to be a cunt.
Oh my god, yeah, I know. Like, I've worked with people like that, and they're just like that. And I was like, oh, like this is the kind of stuff they nail. Where like I've met people like this that are on the show, or I've seen it happen to people I know, or you know, and that's great. Like I think a show that can do that, like yeah, it's obviously I'm invested now because it's done its job. You know, I avoided the show. You know, like most shows, I don't watch many, if at all, and I only watched this on Jamie's recommendation. So, you know, I think it's done its job as far as being successful. But one other thing, John DiMaggio, Marcus Phoenix, is in this show. When I saw him come on screen, I'm like, oh damn, my boy. Oh yeah, because I like Joe DiMaggio. I love him. He's awesome, and I'm glad to see that they got some prominent voice actor in the show. Like he's not just a game voice actor, but he does other stuff. Like everybody knows, you know, Bender and Adventure Time, and you know all that kind of shit that he does. And it was just a pleasure to see him. Like just as a fan of him, I didn't expect him to turn up at all. But and then you know him playing the other side of the you know the grass is greener aspect. Like she was miserable and stressed and you know wanting to leave and all this kind of stuff. And like we've all been there. Like I know I have when I've quit a job or you know thought about walking out on a job that I'm so invested in. I've spent years at. You know, do I make this choice or not? You know, that whole thing. I was like, yeah, cool. I get it. And then because she's emotionally invested in the place, even though she didn't realize it, she might hate the dude, but yeah, there's a dynamic that works. And like when she called up the place and was like, "No, I think I'll stay here." I'm like, "No, no, don't do that." And I was cringing. I'm like, I hate this in stories because it makes me go, "Oh god damn it," because you know you're invested in stuff. Like, oh man, I enjoyed it. Like I'm surprised, Dan. I'm surprised by you. How dare you have a different opinion to us? How dare you? But no, look, I really enjoyed it. Really enjoyed the show. I would sign back up for a second one. Not that I would sign up for Apple. I'd like to see it on something else like Netflix or whatever. But I'll find a way to watch it whenever it comes out.
I'm sure I'll be able to assist you.
Thank you. Do you know when?
It was scheduled to be the end of this year, but it's obviously been put back. The filming's been delayed. They shut up shop pretty much immediately. I think anybody who's working on an Apple show, they were told everybody offset straight away.
How much money are we going to put on that either Laura Bailey, Troy Baker, or Nolan North will appear in the next season?
Oh, yeah.
It does probably just because video games, but it doesn't actually need any of them. I think with
no, but as like a cameo.
As a cameo, Troy Baker probably. He seems to knock about with the Hollywood lot quite a bit, doesn't he? So yeah, probably him. Or if any of them have ever been on It's Always Sunny, you can guarantee that they're going to get in this show somewhere. Which I coincidentally started after watching Mythic Quest because I enjoyed Rob McElhenney so much, and Mac in It's Always Sunny is nothing like Iron in Mythic Quest. But yeah, I can't wait for season 2. All of them, I want to see what everybody goes on to do. Even rattling through the entire cast, like. Obviously, the testers have got their, they had a bit of an implosion. It's like, oh, Dana's off doing this, but now they're back together, and probably get some more banter between those two. Is it going to get romantic? Probably. That was alluded to quite a little bit. And, even the poor studio director, I know they don't call him that, but, essentially what he is, like, he just gets walked all over left, right, and center. And his assistant is one of the best things about the show. She is phenomenal. Some of the one-liners that she belts out are utterly unbelievable.
Before we close this off, which role would you guys be if you were in that studio?
Fuck. Iron. Yeah, I would be like, nah, this is me. I want to do this. You do that. And
I don't do phones.
Yeah.
I don't do calendars.
Yeah.
What do you do?
Yeah, like I'm off in my own world. I play I do my own thing at most days, and I can see myself being that guy. But I got a real Cliffy B angle from him, that character. Like it just seems to be like a commentary on that kind of developer who's larger than himself, And at the time of Gears and stuff, Cliffy B, as he used to call himself, Cliff Blazinski, he was kind of trying to be that rock star developer, and for better or worse, for whatever image he put out there. But yeah, look, I have an ego, so I'd have to be Iron. Yeah.
His look gave me like a little bit of like Neil Druckmann vibes. Just like wearing the all black, he's got he's got the beard, and he's talking about like all this stuff that no one else around him knows anything about.
Yeah.
Funnily enough, his workers wanted to unionize as well.
Yeah, I'd be the executive producer character, I think.
Oh fuck, David.
I'm not sure. I'll let you guys call me. I could fit a few roles in there.
So you're the perfectionist, though, Jamie. So, like, maybe
but you also don't miss anybody.
You also like to, steer your own shit. Maybe you and I you'd be Iron and I'd be Poppy.
Co-creative director. From this day forth, you will be known as my favorite brush. Yeah, because you like drawing shit.
Yeah, and like you're kind of steering this thing, and I can do things in that, and I just do it.
It's such a good show, and there are a few genuine moments of industry clarity in there as well. Where you watch it, and Chun, I think you've already maybe touched on a few of these while I was dealing with a screaming infant. There's that scene. I know I just briefly mentioned it there. The whole I don't do phones, I don't do calendars, and it's like, what does he do? And it's like it's the next thing that's popped into his brain. What is it? Blood Ocean. Poppy in the background is just like head on the table going, he does Blood Ocean. There's just so many like of those little moments. But the one that stood out for me really was, they've had all this, like, she's had that internal conflict because he will not budge on his demands because he knows it's for the betterment of the end result, right? Which she's struggling to see. And when he's literally stood in her house and it's like, look, we make masterpieces. And that is ultimately the mentality that a good developer in the video game industry has to have, irrespective of the struggles that's going on. Look at Naughty Dog. We've referenced Naughty Dog already. Like, I don't doubt that that's exactly what's going on there. The workers are being put through the ringer. Like, but at the end of the day, if they get to walk away with a game that is a 10 out of 10 on Metacritic or 100 or whatever their rating score is, 100% everywhere, 10s, it's worth it. It doesn't mean that they should be underpaid. It doesn't mean that they should not be rewarded, but that struggle, that internal, the emotional struggle, the sleepless nights, it's worth it. And I think that the show did a fantastic job of doing that eloquently, rather than just kind of, they do make the jokes that it's like, you know, like the code in Den, it's like, oh, you're all just slaves, like the slave drivers. But again, it's a TV show, but that end point, and I was like, do you know what? They've absolutely nailed it. They really, really nailed it. And yes, season 2 yesterday, please.
Yes, indeed. Yep, no, thoroughly enjoyed it. I should probably pay attention to more of your suggestions because
did we not say this last week?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah. So you know,
and the week before with Animal Crossing.
And Mythic Quest now. Yeah, true. Yeah, I know. You should know by now. Like again, it's like the Poppy thing. Like I relate to Poppy now that I think about it, because the publication I used to work for, I was literally Poppy. Like that's why I liked her character so much. It's like, fuck, I was there. You know, like everything that she went through, like I was that person. So I was like, fuck, it does happen. And then Iron was my boss, literally, but on speed, you know. So yeah, I really enjoyed it. Keen for the next one. I don't know how we're going to wrap this one up, because there's so much that we've talked about, and it's like, where do we start? But I just have to say, Jamie, I'll listen to you more in future. If you recommend something to me, I'll take more heed on it. And Dan, you know, you should learn something from this and be more open to things. And this does not equate to Schindler's List. You know, I might get some heat from that from people. Maybe, I don't know. It's just the one that came to mind. And speaking of games, we'll have to play some more after this if we do have the time. Jamie, you can let us know. But I don't know. I've enjoyed this healthy discussion. We've covered a lot today, technical issues and all. But I think we'll wrap it up there. So anyone that's been watching, thank you very much. You can see our socials at the top there. You got Mixer at Let's Talk Games if we ever actually use that. You got Twitter, LT Games. Then our socials you see below there. So Jamie, thank you. Dan, thank you. Uncle Chunt, thank you. And peace out and toodaloos.
See you next week.